Ready? Hi there, it's Tim Allwood from Compass Property Investing here today with Doug Whittaker, one of our senior property analysts, and we did a little Q&A just before Christmas and a question and answer session, and that video was one of our most watched for the year, so we thought we'd get another one going. And we've had more questions come in, so we just thought we'd get into it and give you some more questions and answers. So the first one's for you, Doug.
Sure.
Here we go. Right, $50. You see it on the internet a lot. People are saying, you know, you can invest for as little as $50 a week or whatnot, your lunch money. So, Doug, how does that work?
Okay, one of the fallacies with investment that people don't understand is people think that you have to have a lot of money to invest. That's just not the case. The reality is people get a lot of money because they do invest. So you've got to get it in right order. So $50 a week, it depends what people do with $50 a week. I mean, $50 a week these days doesn't go far. What could you buy? You know, you buy a couple of pizzas or something like that with $50 a week, or you can invest it. And there's a couple of things that people do. Most of the clients I speak to are trying to pay their home loan down quickly.
Right. That's
so. That's what they're doing. So they've got an extra $50 or an extra $100 a week, and so they're throwing it into their home loan, which, I mean, it isn't a bad thing. There's worse things you could do with it. But the reality is paying your home loan down is more a comfort strategy. It's not a wealth creation strategy.
That's right. It's a get-rich-slow scheme because they actually could be using that for better leverage.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So I'll give you an example. Let's just say someone's got a spare $50 a week. Okay, so they've got a choice. Let's just say they put it into their home loan. So you put $50 into your home loan over a year. That's an extra $2,600 you've paid off.
Correct.
Over 10 years, it's $26,000 plus you're going to save some interest on the principal. So depending on bank charges, interest rates, probably about $40,000. So you sacrifice $50 every week for 10 years, and you've improved your financial situation by $40,000. Look at a leveraged process. Leverage simply means taking a small amount to purchase an asset of greater value. Right. So instead of putting that $50 a week into your home loan, let's just say you used it to invest in a $400,000 investment property. Yep. What we know about quality property, it doubles in value every 8 to 12 years. So in 8 to 12 years, that $400,000 property is going to be worth $800,000, which is going to give you $400,000 in cashable equity. Now, $50 a week, exactly the same amount of money coming out of your pocket on a weekly basis, but one produces $40,000 advantage and the other produces $400,000. So
that's right.
You tell me, which is the best strategy?
That's right. So for the right person, it's very doable, and a lot of people just don't realise they can do it.
Exactly.
Which leads me into the start of the video, which we can't rewind, but we would if I could. Is a disclaimer. What we're talking about here today is of general nature, and if you do look at buying something of any description, you should always seek proper specialist finance advice and whatnot and other professionals. So what we say here is live and we can't take it back, but what we're saying is good advice, because that is something that we see a lot, people, you know, putting their $50 in the wrong area. And yes, you can make a successful property portfolio with the $50.
Yeah, absolutely. But one of the questions I get asked when I talk about $50 is they say, well, where can you buy an investment property for $50?
A lot of places.
But what people don't understand is the tenant and the tax benefit are going to fund the majority of it. You know, most of our properties aren't even $50 in.
That's right.
They're cash flow neutral or even cash flow positive. So you've got to understand an investment property is different to when you purchase your home. When you purchase a home, your own home, you're liable for 100% of the repayments. Not true with an investment property. You've got a tenant and the tax department that are servicing.
That's right, and we've got fundamentally low interest rates, which makes just about a lot of properties cash flow neutral, which means it's not costing anything or might cost a little bit. So, Doug, well answered. Well, it's a cracker.
I've got one for you.
Thank you.
A few people have asked this question, is what should I look for in an investment property?
What should I look for? Okay. 3 things really, is the location, the timing and the structure. So let's talk about location. That's obvious. It's an obvious one. Is it going to be near schools? Is it going to be where people want to live? Is there road infrastructure? You know, employment opportunities. So they're obvious ones. A lot of people miss it and don't understand it, but proper research will always will help with that. And the Terry Riders and the Matusiks all those give that sort of research. The timing, you want to make sure it's a rising market, which means that there's growth immediately, because there'll always be growth, but you don't want to get involved in a stagnation time, because things just makes a little bit more pressure. So you want no pressure, rising market. That's about timing.
Yeah. And
last of all, structure. And I break structure into two things: the structure of your finance, because please don't just go to your bank to get a loan, because most people in the banks just say you a loan and it's not structured right. So it actually really does help you, pay this one down quickly, your existing place where you live, and also gives you the ability to borrow again. That's very, very important. And the other thing with structure is the structure of the house. Is it the right house to suit the demographic of what you're looking for? Out in the suburbs, typically it's mum and dad, 2.5 children and a Labrador. So, you need to make sure that house you don't overcapitalise, it's not too big. Some parts of Australia, we put in houses that are 200, 210 square metres. A lot of other areas, it might be 170 square metres to 180 square metres, which more than adequately fulfills the need of a 4-bedroom, 2-bar, 2-car. Not what you might want to live in. You might want 2 fireplaces and 3 media rooms. Irrelevant. You just want to make sure that it is rented, and rented well. So the structure of the property is important. Don't overcapitalise.
That's right, because if the rental return for a particular area is, say, $380 or $400 a week, you don't want to be building an $800,000 property, because it's just not going to be viable. So one of the things we do at Compass when we're actually looking at areas and construction of properties and looking at builders to build properties, we actually work around, how much is that area going to build? How much is that area going to rent for?
And another one, people say, "Oh, Tim, I want to buy, and then on one day might move there when I retire." Next, it never happens, because
that's right.
Because people just end up with that many properties. Once they get into it, they realise. So don't fall into that old chestnut.
Yep.
So another one for you now, Doug. Next question. This would be, how do you find investment hotspots, Doug? That's what they ask us. So, Doug, how would you do that?
Okay, probably quality research is the key to that, and that's something we do a lot at Compass. National Institute of Property Research, we commission them to do individual things just for Compass. They'll go into areas, they'll look at infrastructure, they'll look at spending, they'll look at the amount of jobs in the area, rental available properties. So I would say the major thing is to get the research right. We also look at a lot of government reports.
Sure.
Because the government's not trying to sell you anything. The government is looking at an area to see how much money they're going to have to spend on infrastructure. So when you see the government building new schools, hospitals, rail corridors, transport, you know that they're projecting that area is going to be a high growth area. Sure. So number one, in-depth research, which is what we do. But I think you've got
too. It's worth thousands. It's worth thousands of dollars every year. But when we spread it out, we give it out to everyone. So it's free.
An individual couldn't do the amount of research we do. You'd be sitting in front of the computer for the next 5 years.
A lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. The other way is, if you want to get a quick snapshot of the Australian property market, on our Facebook page and Instagram feed, you'll find a thing. Tim's got one here.
Property clock.
The property clock. And it just gives you an instant look. Now, it gives you an idea of where properties are at any particular time. For example,
this is brought out by Herring Todd White, so big plug to them. Well recognised, and every few months it's on our Facebook and whatnot. But we see here up the top at the moment we've got Melbourne and the Gold Coast up here, which near the top means that it's at the peak of its price, and down the bottom here is when the market is at the bottom, so it's a time to be buying. So anywhere between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock is a good time to get involved. When it starts getting up around here, you want to sort of back off a bit. And Sydney's over here, obviously, because it's a little bit cooked at the moment.
Yeah.
Down the bottom here we've got Perth. We'll be back in Perth later this year. Good time there. We've got Ipswich and Brisbane, right in the prime time to be buying. And then we've got Melbourne, it's getting a bit up there in the Gold Coast. So
So if you're going to check the property clock out, the areas you want to be looking for are from 6 o'clock to 3 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
3 to 9 o'clock,
To go home early.
6 o'clock, 3 to 9 o'clock, and they'll give you the areas that are actually in a rising market. And that's important, because you want to get in a rising market because you want to get your capital growth in the first 2 or 3 years. You don't want to be waiting 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So that's why you don't want to get into declining markets.
Great. Got your pages mixed up now. Next question. There we go.
Tim, this one's for you.
Oh, good.
What can I do to minimise risk when I invest in property?
Okay, so risky. There's a lot of things we do that are risky. Driving a car's risky. Swimming out in the middle of the ocean's risky. You make sure you can swim if you're going to do that, and you make sure someone's with you. When you drive a car, you get a license, you do take lessons. When you change lanes, you don't just close your eyes and reef the wheel and speed up. You actually check your blind spots and indicator. It's the same with property investing. You just need to mitigate the risk, and that means talking with professionals that know their stuff. And it can be done easily. Many people have done it before you. So that's what you need to do is research. And today, with social media, you can get to know people and you can ring up and you can inquire. People come and visit you and tell you more about it. All the time you can be watching. It's important to find a company that cares and knows what they're talking about, because a lot of companies just don't care, and they'll sell you the property and then it's whatever. So that's what you look for. Look for those testimonials. Come and meet the people that's involved. And so risky, not really. And in this day and age, the world's come ahead with if a builder does collapse, which it's up to us to find a builder that doesn't. But if they do, the house is still going to be built. It'll be built by another builder. So there's a lot of protections these days. People you can't build in a flood area, for example, whereas 30 years ago you could, whereas now you can't. So there's a lot more protection out there. But yeah, so it's up to yourself to do the due diligence and mitigate the risk. So anything's risky if you don't know what you're doing or if you don't take the time.
I think one of the things that people are most concerned about is if a tenant damages the property. So so
landlord insurance.
There's landlord insurance covers that risk. So as you say, it's all about managing risk. There's no such thing as an investment without risk. It's just that property is the lowest risk, most predictable return of any investment 100%. That you can make. There are things to mitigate risk. There's things like landlord insurance. If someone does damage a property, they'll pay up to $50,000 of the damage. Yeah. You can build buffers into the loan that give you a little bit of leeway. So if something does go wrong, the air conditioning blows up, you don't have the money to replace it at the time, you've got a little buffer in place. So
that's right. Yeah, the finance to make sure there's a buffer. All that. There's a lot of things, and we make sure that happens, of course. Yeah. And so good one, Doug.
Yep.
Now it's a question for you. People are talking about perfect time. We've done that one. Mitigate risk. Tim asked a question. What's this question? People say they're waiting for the perfect time to invest. What do you say about that, Doug?
Well, Australians are great procrastinators. They she'll be right, mate. We'll do it next year. The truth is, a lot of people will never invest simply because of a mindset. The atmosphere in Australia for investing at the moment has never, ever been better. There's a saying I wrote down here that I love. It's got, don't cling to a mistake just because you took a long time making it.
That's right.
And a lot of people have got all these negative things in there and they cling to them, they repeat them time after time. But it's a perfect time to invest in Australia. One of the things I hear people say all the time, overseas people are buying all our property. Hello? Well, that should be a pretty good indicator of what happens, because they understand that Australia, it's the cleanest, it's the wealthiest place that people...
Education, commodities.
Absolutely, people are flooding in here. We've got natural resources. We've got a stable government. We've got a banking system.
And we're surrounded by water, so we're pretty well insulated against what happens.
Yeah.
And if ever there was a dip in Australia's economy, which there hasn't been for a long time, if there ever is, they just let some more money in from India, massive amounts of money in there, China, Korea, there's all this money. So Australia's in a really good place where people would give their left arm and right leg to come here.
That's right. That's why these people come into Australia. They know where they've come from. They know the risk of the country they were in. A dodgy banking system, a dodgy government or something like that. So they come in here and it's stable. It's the perfect
hospitals.
So the very first thing they want to do when they come here, as soon as they're legally allowable, they want to get into property. So
we have plenty of clients that are here in Australia, and they're more and more people coming over all the time. There's something like 300,000 people born every year in Australia or have migrated here to Australia. So there's 2.1 people to a house. So that's like 150,000 houses a year that relies on people like you buying investment properties, because the government doesn't provide a lot of commission housing and whatnot. So, and plus the politicians pick up their tax deductibility just like you can by using the system, which is the taxman and tenant and a little bit of money yourself. So we're going off track there a bit.
So what I'd say, don't get paralysed by over-analysing everything. And I do know people, they go to every seminar, they go to every webinar, but they never actually invest. And it reminds me of a story I was telling Tim yesterday, asking had he heard about the seminar duck.
That's right.
And he hadn't. And it's a really interesting story, because there was this world-famous duck, and he used to hold seminars all around the world, and he used to teach other ducks how to fly. And so when he was coming to town, you'd see all these ducks, they'd waddle out of the house and they'd waddle down into the convention centre to listen to this duck. And he'd talk about how magnificent it was to fly and all the places he'd been to. And all the little ducks were jumping up and down, they're really excited. Yeah, they had such a good time. But when it was over, they all waddled back home, back to their TV, and they never actually did anything.
And that reminds me, one of your best.
That reminds me of a lot of people do that. You know, we overanalyze. We get all the information. We know what we need to do. We know what we should be doing. We know we can be doing it, but people never actually do it.
That's right.
Well, some people never do it. A lot are, as testament by a lot of our clients.
Well, Doug, that's been really, really great to listen to that, and the duck story. I love it. So now 2 days in a row. It's fantastic. So if you are interested in doing anything, just inquire, follow us, like us, share us, do whatever you have to do to us, and we'll always be here to stand by you and help you out if we can. So that's another question and answer, Q&A from Compass Property Investing. Have a fantastic 2018, and thanks, Doug, for your time.
Okay,
and we'll see you soon. Take care. All the best.